What's up, guys? Welcome to Project Razer Stupidity, or what from now on will be probably known as the Ultimate Razer Setup or Project Razer. Basically, if you couldn't tell, this is just a series about Razer products. It'll be a bunch of small reviews and setups and builds that will eventually lead to our Ultimate Razer setup at the end, where we have a whole setup using only Razer products, and that is a dual PC streaming setup. So it's not just a regular PC setup, not just keyboard mouse. I'm talking about whole setup. Anything that Razer sells, I have to buy. And yes, you heard that right. I do have to buy it. This is not in any way sponsored by Razer. Some of you have been asking me and commenting. I think it might be sponsored. It's not sponsored by anyone. There is no sponsor as of yet. I don't know if halfway through the series someone might want to send me some free stuff. No, I'm kidding. Probably not going to happen, but I have an itch on my leg. That's the point. So, it's not sponsored. I've been paying for all this stuff. It is expensive, but that's the point. This is part one, and we're going to start pretty small. The Razer theme isn't really going to show itself yet. As you can see, the only thing we have is our Razer hoodie, or hoodie, this is actually a windbreaker. This case isn't the Razer themed case that we're using. We're using that on the gaming PC, but that'll be later. This will be the streaming PC today, but let's talk about the specs, because that's what you really care about. This is our streaming PC, so we need power. And we're starting off with our X470 Gaming M7 AC from MSI. Now, the one thing you might notice about your when you saw on the close-up there is on the bottom right is the OC dial is completely missing. There used to be an overclock dial on it, and that's because it was sitting on a chair. I then stepped on that chair and completely snapped it off. I am lucky that it damaged me more than I damaged it. So, we'll be using that motherboard. It's an insane, a very high-end X470 motherboard, and for a high-end X470 motherboard, we need a high-end X470 chip. So, for our CPU, we'll be most likely going with a Ryzen 7 2700X. Now, you'll notice we have two Ryzen 7s here. I can't really decide if I want to use my 50th anniversary while taking it actually out of this motherboard so that I could make a video of me putting it back in this motherboard. It came out with the cooler before I actually removed the safety arm, as we're calling it. So I'm probably going to use my regular Ryzen 7 2700X. I still have one more after giving the rest of them away, but we have one more. So what else do we have today? So obviously we're going to start cooler. We have a 250 gigabyte WD Blue SSD. This is a SATA SSD, but it is M.2. This will just be for our boot drive and any important files, because this is a streaming/recording PC, so we don't need super fast storage. It's not for editing or anything else. So, for RAM, actually, that's where it gets interesting. For RAM, we have our Trident Z Royal. We have 32 gigs of Trident Z Royal. Now, these are 3000 megahertz kits, but sadly, only one of the sticks can actually run at 2400. So, actually, I worded that incorrectly. One of the sticks has to run at 2400 megahertz or below because it is slightly damaged, so it'll all be running at 2400 megahertz. The original plan was to use this RAM in our gaming PC, but with that limitation, we have to go with the performance, so we have to use these for the streaming PC, which really won't need that fast memory for using its 8 cores for streaming. So we have 16 gigs of each color, which we'll all just put in this motherboard for a nice 32 gigs of 2400 megahertz. For here's where we get to the fun parts. So our streaming stuff, we have a 4-port gigabit Ethernet card. Now you're probably wondering, well, your motherboard probably has gigabit Ethernet. Of course it does. It's like $200. But this is a 4-port Ethernet card. So if the, perhaps, just not saying it happens, but just in case, the wire frays or the port on the motherboard just goes out during a stream, a driver issue, there's always the second backup with 4 extra ports, so we'll be plugging at least 2 Ethernet ports into this PC because its job will be streaming. If the internet goes out on the gaming PC, that's fine. But the streaming PC, if its internet goes out, your stream is dead in the water. So we can't have that happening, so we're using an extra card, and we'll be using a brand new, and I say brand new very lightly because it's used by me, but basically new, HD60 Pro. I would use the 4K 60 Pro, but that's in my actual streaming setup. But it might actually end up switching if this becomes my permanent streaming setup. I don't know. I will end up having 2 streaming setups. Yes, that is very true. So the HD 60 Pro is a great capture card. No latency whatsoever. As it's got the tiniest bit of latency because of wires and such. But you get the point. It's great for streaming. I used it up until I got the 4K 60, and it was great. For storage, we have a 2 terabyte Barracuda from Seagate. Just a great drive. Don't forget, this is a recording PC, so it's not for games or anything. It's just for keeping all that recording space for our 1080p footage for now. Then we have some cooling fans. Now our graphics card. We had a lot of choices for the graphics card. Our first choice, well, I was thinking, well, why not go with the Vega 64? Because it's so sleek and it's so nice. The Vega 64 liquid cooled, and I do have 2 of them, so I wouldn't be losing anything by just shoving one in a build. But you can kind of see why a Razer-themed build wouldn't like a red and silver graphics card. Those are quite literally not they're just so not the colors. Red is like not the opposite. Actually, red is the opposite of green. I just realized that. I thought, red and blue, whatever. Red is the opposite of green, so that wouldn't work. And silver is not black, and it's black and green is the color. So then we thought, well, let's get some power in here. The 1080 Ti Poseidon. That's for a different build, but we'll talk about that later. Then we thought the 1080 Ti that I dyed gold. Now, this was a good choice originally, but we ran into some issues, which we will talk about later, but we hope to eventually put that 1080 Ti in this build, but right now it will not be going in. And, of course, the Radeon 7. The Radeon 7 is a beautiful graphics card, and it's literally red. Obviously, it can't go in the build. It's the same problem with the Vega, except 10 times worse because it's the exact opposite color. This is not a Christmas build, although I wish it was. But that's beside the point. So, our original plan, after seeing all these graphics cards, was going with a GTX 980, surprisingly. Well, that's not a very powerful graphics card. Why would you use a GTX 980? Good question. Because it's a streaming PC, and I'll be using the X264 encoder, which is the highest quality encoder right now, for streaming. So I'll be using all my CPU cores. I barely even need a GPU. Some people use an iGPU for a streaming PC. Now, sometimes for recording, if I wanted to do 4K, the old Maxwell encoder on this poor old 980 wouldn't exactly work so well. But that's why we'll do the 1080 Ti later when we get another 4K 60 Pro. But we were gonna do a 980. Is the key word. We ran into a bit of an issue. So the Seasonic Focus Plus Gold power supply that I have has every single wire it needs, except it only has one 6-pin PCIe connector. So we're very, very limited. It has one 6-pin and that's it. It doesn't even have its 8 pins. I don't know why it just didn't come with them, but I got such a great deal that I kept it. So we only have one custom cable mod cable, which is a 6-pin. We don't have 2 for the GTX 980. Which means something special. I have been asked time and time again, why don't you use that? Why don't you see this? Come on, make a review. I love that card. I want to see it. I want to see it used. So finally, my orange pants, they don't match at all. We're going to finally do it. I'm going to use the RX 580 Cute Pet in my Razer Ultimate Build streaming PC. Yes, it has one 6-pin PCIe connector, so it can be used, and is the only graphics card that I have that can be used with the Focus Plus Gold. If the Vega doesn't match, this definitely ain't gonna match. This is blue and pink, but honestly, I think everyone can agree this is a worthwhile exception. This is the best graphics card that's ever been created. Now, I will be sad losing it from my shelf for the while that it's in there until we can replace some wires on here, which are actually way more expensive than you would think. I'm buying all Razer products, and I'm complaining about cable prices. That's how you know they're very expensive. So, this is the graphics card we will be using for this build. And it is complete. So, 2700X, 2 terabytes and 250 gigabytes of storage, a gaming M7X470AC motherboard or whatever, it's got Wi-Fi or something, 32 gigs of Trident Z Royal, HD60 Pro, an RX 580 2048 SP, a very cute one that is, network card, and that's about it, and the H500i. This is an H500i, I completely forgot to talk about it, but you know what it is. It's a case that has lighting, it's amazing, it's beautiful, and I got a great deal on it, and of course, I almost forgot, we're using a Focus Plus Gold, which everyone already knows, because I said that already. So, we've already gone for like 10 minutes of recording, so I don't think I'm going to do like a time. I'll do a quick time lapse, okay? How about that? I'll do a very, very quick time, like 2000% time lapse, quick song, and we'll get this build done. No copyright, hopefully, please. Let's get this build started, and we'll talk about it when we're done. 1 second. And just like that, guys, we're finished. All that's left to do is turn it on and hope it works. Are there lights? Motherboard lights. That's a boot. Hey. And just like that, guys, it works. Which, it took a minute to boot this SSD. Now, I want to address one thing, if you aren't already mad at it and haven't commented about it already. The SSD, I know I put it in the slot where it's connected to the chipset instead of the CPU. I put it in the bottom NVMe slot, or M.2 I should say. That's because the top slot and that SSD specifically, it doesn't work. I don't know why, but it's fine. It's a SATA SSD anyway, so it doesn't matter. That's not the point. Also, I know it kind of got weird where I started off with like multiple camera angles and everything. Then it just kind of cut to everything because my SD card filled up in the camera, and I'm just trying to get this video done before I need to clear that whole card. So got to get this edited and done. So that's really it. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed the first part of our Razer series, the streaming PC. I know it's not all green yet. I'll definitely bring it back. We'll do a part 2 where I bring it back, show the streaming performance, everything. This is the point. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.